Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to the community live stream. This is Friday, June 14th, 2019. I got the date right, but the year wrong. My name is Chuck Tomasi. I am from Servicenow, and this is the show that brings you not only the questions and answers in the community, at least the ones that I can get in a reasonable amount of time, but gives you the insights, the journey of discovery, the exploration, the reverse engineering that goes into how we got to those answers. A little bit of experimentation along the way, we'll learn something. And you can take those skills back to your organization to become a more effective ServiceNow administrator and developer. Let me just do a quick refresh on the screen, make sure that YouTube is accepting my feed. And I'm not seeing it. This is a little distressing. Don't see it on the mobile device, but I'm going to soldier on as if it were happening anyway. Do an occasional refresh on that screen, see what happens. This is interesting. So hopefully you're watching. I can't see the chat yet, but I will get in there as soon as I can. Where is this magical chat, you ask? If you're new to this, it is over at YouTube at the URL you see right there. I encourage you to subscribe, turn on those notifications so that you get notified when we do this. I do this when I'm at home, when I'm healthy, when I have availability, out of the goodness of my heart to share information with you about the Now platform and how you can address take some of these concepts, as I mentioned, to your organization. If you are watching, if you want to set your calendar, 1 p.m. UTC. I know some of you have that blocked off on your calendar. You go, I'm going to watch. And thank you very much. We put those up on YouTube. They are there for all eternity with show notes, links to source code, that kind of thing. And also cross-post that to our community, which I'll get to in just 1 second. Also post this to Twitch on a temporary, almost a backup basis, because once in a while, hey, things go wrong with YouTube. We've seen that. I had one in April that a 1 hour presentation somehow got stretched out to 2 hours. The audio was off, so you can always watch the content on Twitch over there at twitch.tv/NOWCommunity. I also record a local copy, so if something like that happens, let me know, and I'll put the recorded one on YouTube in place of that. Haven't had a double failure yet, knocking on what looks like wood over here, and we'll get that going for you. So 2 options for you, YouTube and Twitch. If you've got more, give me a shout out. Let me see who you are, where you're from, how are you doing today? And I'm still not seeing this on YouTube. This is a bit distressing, but I will continue to go. If worse comes to worse, we'll just upload the YouTube video at the end, the local copy. How's that for a promise? Going to keep going. We just won't have that live interaction like we usually do. I will be playing around in the community.servicenow.com. If you've got a question, issue, inquiry about ServiceNow, please post it there. Other subject matter experts are standing by, are monitoring, and can help out with that so that you can get your answers as quickly as possible. And maybe get some insight. We've had some great discussions in the last few days, the ones that I've come across anyway, with some real hardcore subject matter experts that can help drive home the conversation. If you, like I said, go to community.servicenow.com, and I'm going to leave it there. Let's move on to the developer portal over at developer.servicenow.com. This is where we have our developer program. Get yourself a free personal developer instance. London, Madrid, Kingston, any of the 3 latest releases. We named them after the cities of the world alphabetically, so technically that would have gone Kingston, London, Madrid, but did that out of order. Just see who's paying attention. Get a free personal developer instance, free learning plans. We've got learning plans available on a variety of subjects and more coming. I was just talking with Ben Sweetser yesterday, who is part of the developer program learning plan content. I don't know if that's an actual title or not, but we've also got videos on YouTube. Haven't checked. Not sure if we're doing a live coding happy hour today, but that is also part of this. If so, I will see you there. Go to developer.servicenow.com. Of course, we've got meetups coming. These are under the events menu, and we've got, as I mentioned yesterday, Copenhagen, New Delhi, Chicago, New York. I don't see Phoenix on here yet. I know that is coming up. But if you want to find one in your area, this is just what's coming up, and you can sign up. Go over to meetup.com/pro/ServiceNow dev program. You can see we've got over 50 chapters all over the world. And if you're interested in starting a new one, let us know. We'd be happy to help get you started with that. You run it. We don't tell you what content it is, what's coming in July. We'll offer some options. We work together with other chapter leaders from all over the world to allow you to share content, to get the benefit of that. They've even created some apps to help the organizers do that more effectively. So over 16,000 people around the world, and we're looking to grow that all the time. So if you want to be part of that, talk to like-minded developers, go over to meetup.com, find your nearest chapter, sign up for that. And who knows, if you're traveling, sometimes I am, I get lucky, and there is a meetup when I'm in town. So I just got approval this morning that I will be in Northeast Wisconsin for the Snug other events. Let's talk about other events real quickly. I think that's my E key. Let's do that. Over at servicenow.com/events.html. ServiceNow user groups are a broader topic. Developer content is more specific to ServiceNow developers. Just giving a quick refresh. Still not seeing it. I think something's up with YouTube, but we'll fix that in a bit. So events.html on the main website. You can find it there. User groups. I'll be talking about the community, the developer program, and just the builder program that we're coming out with in general about how to enable and get those line of business or process owner people in your organization involved in the development process so that the hardcore developers, the pro developers, can focus on those more complex business problems, integrations and service portal widgets and flow designer actions, things that need code, and then delegate the rest out. So I'm not going to dive into that too deeply here. That's the developer program. That's kind of the ServiceNow user groups, the snugs, cover a broader topic. Look for one in your area as well. I'm looking forward to seeing some of my old friends. I don't know if everybody is aware, but I spent about 24 years raising our family in Northeast Wisconsin. So very much looking forward to getting back there. Had a wonderful call with one of my old coworkers. He's since had jobs at 2 different organizations since we worked together 9 years ago. So times change, but the people, I love seeing them. Let us continue on with let's see, we did the meetups, we did events. We will talk about the next webinar, June 25th, a little over a week away. We will be talking about the ServiceNow email client. It's that little piece of functionality that you see on some of the incidents. I didn't get to show this yesterday. I apologize. I mentioned it, but I didn't actually show what it is. I don't want to give away too much of the content that I'm going to be doing it on the webinar. But let's see. You know what? I'm going to jump right into that. Since there's no live Q&A, I definitely won't get thrown off track by great questions. And how are you? So that is what we've got. Oh, also want to mention that let's go to, hope to see you. Register at the link below. There. How's that? Close that out. And any source code that we write, any script, will be available on GitHub at the URL you see there in a dated folder. The link on the community, the link on YouTube's description for this video will include a direct link to that folder so you don't have to go digging around. Make it easier for you if you follow that. As I mentioned, this video, the articles we talk about, the topics we talk about will be put back into the community. Very meta redundant. We're talking about the community and we put it on the community. Make it easier for you to find. If you find something in this video that you find helpful, you would like to share with a colleague, you find slightly humorous, be sure to check the like button on YouTube or Twitch to let other people know that there is something helpful that they can find here. Appreciate it very much. If you're watching this in the community, click the helpful link there as well. Lets other people know that there's helpful content here. I also appreciate the comments that people have given on these videos in the past. Thank you very much. Quick reminder that, let's see if I can get this. Oh, don't want to hit that key. That will take me away from where we're on keyboard. There are only 324 days till knowledge 20. So that may sound like a simple tongue-in-cheek expression, trying to be humorous, but it's not too early to start thinking about the budget for next year. Start rationalizing and justifying. It gives your boss and your boss's boss the idea that you are planning ahead. You are thinking about the future. You are more than just tactically focused on what's going on today, but what we can do to increase our value and get more value out of the platform that you've purchased. So you may have implemented ITSM. Maybe you're thinking about customer service management. Maybe you're thinking about custom applications. Maybe you're thinking about HR service delivery. Those are all available. Performance and analytics and reporting and Flow Designer. There's lots of hands-on. There's lots of social stuff. Lots of, well, apparently there was a piñata last year and you missed it. That piñata's name was Lindsay. There's a trivia question we could have for next year on Jeopardy. What was Chuck's piñata name? And only the viewers who watched on June 14th will know. The herbal tea is perfect temperature right now because it is warming up in Phoenix, Arizona. Let us get on with the content. I'm going to do a quick refresh and jump in with some brand new questions. So let's look at unreplied and see what's come up. Script to compare dates. One of my favorite challenges. How is they doing it? Hi guys, I'm struggling to create a script for a scheduled job which would help me to review change requests. What I try to achieve is to check all change requests with conditions, status review, close code is not failed, and where the actual start date time is after the planned start date time and actual end date time is no later than 15 minutes after planned end time. So there's your change request record. I would not do this in script, to be honest. I would recommend, I've actually started shying away from scheduled jobs. To make this easier to implement and maintain, I recommend taking a look at Flow Designer, where you can trigger a flow on a scheduled basis. The lookup becomes quite simple to build based on a condition builder, and then use a for each, I think it's like this, I can't remember, loop to go through all the records you found. And I'm going to include a link from our product documentation on Madrid out to Flow Designer. This one should now be a macro for me because it comes up all the time. Create link HTML, script to improve. Again, much simpler. Let me go into Flow Designer and show you where that is. So this is my, that's not it. That's Jeopardy. Jeopardy is posted. Jeopardy is live on the community. And don't let me forget, I still want to talk about the email client. That's next. So underneath, where was I going? Flow Designer. Flow Designer. If I go to Flow Designer, I did that a little quickly. I just typed in Flow here, Flow Designer. Under Designer, it brings up a separate window. If you don't see the separate window, check your pop-up settings. That's a common thing anytime you get a new instance. I don't think Studio does that. Script Debugger does, because it comes up in a separate window, not a tab. And I'm going to create a new flow. So over there on the side, we'll just call this change request test. Give it a name. Make sure it's in the right scope. I'm in global right now, and I'm just doing this as an example. I'm not even going to save this. I create that, and underneath, click a trigger. Most of us are familiar with taking a record that's been updated or created and updated. Those first three. That's often how we think of flows being done. And we'll say, hey, when this record is updated and the condition changes, you pick a table like incident. I know it's a very common use case. And you add filters to say state changes to blah, 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 blah. But you can also see down here it's scheduled. So we've got daily, weekly, monthly, run once. Repeat means I'm going to run this every 3 hours or every 3 days. Okay, so let's say every day at 7 a.m., there's my schedule. Now, the other cool thing about this is when you go to test this, let's say I'm just going to put in a quick log message. What he wanted to do was a little bit more, but here's, turn that off, a log message. And what he wanted to do is do a lookup records on the change table. Here's the change request table for those certain conditions. And now the condition building just becomes straightforward. You can use the dates on or after. You can pop in another field so you can see the actual end date is less than blah, 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 something like that. So work with that, much easier to build. Once you get the lookup done, then you would go to the flow logic and say, for each record you found in this list of change records, now you've got a looping construct. I can do conditions on each of the records that it found. So very easy to do. Close that, open that, and say, update record, send email, whatever it is on the for each change record. Flow Designer, pretty simple. What I like, I'm going to trash this for a sec. Okay, I'm going to trash it permanently. Trash my for each and just leave it as a log. What I like is when you do a scheduled job, you don't have to pick a record. It just says, when you test it with the test button, that again fast. So test, you can test your flow before you put it in production, before you release it, before you activate it and make it work on all the records or schedule it. You can run the test, and this just simply prints a log message, check the execution flow to see the operational details, and say, aha, here's a log message, here's the runtime value, and if I go to the system log, I will see that. So Flow Designer for your scheduled jobs, very, very easy. Now, back to my original intent that I missed yesterday and almost missed again today, the email client. You may have seen this. So I'm going to give you a quick preview of what's coming on the 25th. When I open an incident, I have this 3-dot menu, which some people call a kebab. You know, this is the hamburger menu, this is the kebab menu. And I have email up here. I can compose an email. This is very easy. I can add additional recipients. I can put attachments on here. I don't see the attachment paperclip, so, oh, it's up here. Instead of listing at the top of a form, it lists them down here. So if I wanted to add an attachment, I think I had a picture up here, download.jpg. I don't even know how big that is, but we'll put that there. Now it's there. Okay. Hello, and thank you for watching my community video. Or, I gotta be able to type today, for watching my community video. There we are. And send that off. Now, my instance doesn't have any outbound email activated, so it's going to sit there in the outbox, but I could go inspect that and see what it says. And by default, it takes the David Miller as the person it's going to. I can change that. I can add into the CC list anybody who's on the watch list for this. I can modify the behavior and the content of this, and I'll get into a little bit about that. However, my safety issue table over here does not have an email option on it. To get that is very easy. You go to Configure, Dictionary, down here on the bottom, and take the one that says Collection. This is the table definition. And simply add an attribute. It says, oh, this is in the safety application. You can't do that here, Chuck. That's fine. I'm going to get the safety scope selected from my application picker. If you don't have the application picker, you can go to the cog icon, developer, turn on application picker right here. And you will get this little pull down that I did so you can switch it quickly and easily. Now, in the attributes related list, click New and say Email Client. Set that to true. And away you go. Now when I go back to a safety issue and open that up, the kebab menu has an email client. If you don't see this, there is an ACL that you need to be aware of, because end users don't see the email client. Why not? Because they don't have the role to run it. So even though you have enabled it for the table, it's not available for all. That comes up in an access control list. And if I say a system security access control, search for the name email, I believe it's the email client processor. There it is, email client processor. It's an execute permission. Most of you are familiar with doing ACLs as read, write, delete, create. Okay, this is an execute. And admin overrides means I don't care what roles and permissions are on here. Admin's going to be able to play with this one. Down here in the definition are the roles. Currently, only ITIL has the availability to run the email client. So even though I turn this on my safety application, unless somebody happens to have the ITIL role, they're not going to see it. I would also want to elevate my roles, so I have security admin and can modify this. And in order for my safety people to do this, granted this is back in global, so let's switch back to global, noting that you need to capture this in an update set or claim it in a scope. I would add in not my Jeopardy user, where's my safety person? There. Now my safety users can use this email client as well. So two things. Does the table have the client on, and does the security thing, does the ACL have the right role? There's more to it than that, but if you want to find out more, go to the docs. There is also email client configuration, which changes the way the behavior of the client is. Maybe I didn't want the reply to field. I wanted a from field. There's client templates, where you can modify the content based on the table and the condition. So there is, in Madrid, I believe we added the condition to the email client template and say, you know what, when I'm in a state of work in progress on this particular table, I want this particular subject and body, and default it to these clients, which would be opened by instead of caller ID, because that wouldn't make any sense. There is a default client. I haven't defined anything for the safety table. So when the email client comes up here, let's look at safety again, or just go to the recent history and click that record. Open the email client. This is all, it's like there's nothing defined there. So it's going to throw in the number and subject. It's going to use the, there's no recipient in here, but it is going to CC to whoever it's opened by. So I didn't define any of that yet. I can customize that. I'll show you that on the webinar. So that's the email client. I don't want to forget that I talked about that. So I'm going to put that in here. Email client. Yay. Got it. All right. What was the other one? Oh, that note that I had in there. PDF report dynamic header footer. This came up. I don't have a link to the article, but it did come up on the community last night. One of our instructors was doing a performance analytics and reporting course and said, hey, somebody came up and said, can you customize when you export to PDF? I'm going to open that up. Can you customize the header and footer? And the answer is yes, to a degree. It comes up with issue details, page 1 at the top, who it was run by, and the date at the bottom. So I apologize you can't see that. Make that a little bit bigger. And it also looks a lot like UI 11 or whatever came before UI 11. I'm surprised nobody ever fixed the coloration on that to match the styling here. But that being aside, the answer is yes, you can. Under reports, header and footer templates, there is a default template, and it allows you to set, I believe you can do this per table or per report. You can create a template and apply it to a report. But this is the default one, and it says left header content is report title. You can see on the bottom who it was run by, the run date report. If I were to look at, say, this middle content, you can do user-specified text, but it's static text only. Hello, put that here. I tried putting in like number or anything, but those just come out as with the dollars and the curly braces and the words. It doesn't translate anything. I asked our developer. They said, unfortunately, not at this time, but they love the idea and would like to see an enhancement request. So I encourage the person who asked this question on the community, thank you for asking on the community, that they put in an enhancement request. Our product managers do listen. We can't always get things as fast as you'd like sometimes. There's a big focus for some other priorities that are coming out in New York, Orlando next spring, or next March, next Q1. Sorry, can't even say March with confidence. But next Q1 is Orlando in 2020, and then Paris in Q3 of 2020. And what did I find out? Quebec is the one after that. So I know those four. Haven't heard finalization on R. Still thinking it's Rome, but a little bit of trivia for you if you want to do the ServiceNow alphabet. So sadly, this is not available. Let's move on. I'm going to note that we talked about that. Yep, we did talk about that, and it's in my notes. Whew. I think we got, what, 1 or 2 questions out of the community? We've got a response. We go after the email? Let's go after the email. That little one up there, it intrigues me. HTML type, date conversion, and ServiceNow to date. So what they did, I think I mentioned this yesterday. I'm going to go to the content so that's in its own page. They said, I have this widget. This was yesterday afternoon. I was doing some community stuff without the camera. They said, I have an HTML type date. Really, this is in Service Portal. Okay. And this is on the standard UI. So the whole HTML thing got me a little. And I said, wait a minute. It should be able to just take. This is what led me to understand what they were doing. And they've got an ng model in there of c.data.date right here. ng model is a cool AngularJS thing that binds the field to your data model. Because behind the scenes, you can load up a bunch of data in the server script, make use of it in the client script, and display it in the HTML. Well, when you change it in the HTML, sometimes you want to change it in that data model. It's not just this separate thing out there. You can test this out on W3 Schools. They have some examples where you type in your name and it says hello dynamically. You don't even have to enter or submit or anything. It's just live on the screen. So I said, if you've already got it bound with ng model, then try putting in a console.log and verifying your client script that what you see is what you get. And they said, this is what I see in the browser's console log, date undefined. I think this warrants an experiment. This is great stuff for us to play around with, see what we can learn. Might get through this, I might not. Let's find out. So I am in global. I'm going to go to, thought I had Service Portal up there. Service Portal. I do have Service Portal up there. Why is it not in my favorites? Portal configuration. Brings up our portal configurator thingy. I'm going to go to the widget editor and create a new widget. Oh, we still don't have the proper branding. Create a new widget. Let's add a new widget called Date Checker. Create a test page. We'll also call that Date Checker and submit that. So our widget has a page. Very simple widget. Let's take some of the code right out of their widget. They were kind enough to include a lot of this stuff. So here is our HTML. Got to get the right screen, editing. And because it's all wonky formatted, I select all, Shift Tab, and it aligns it for me with nice spacing. Thank you, thank you. The client script part, we're going to just do what I'm going to do, and then the server part, they're going to my table and just getting a date. So GRU date, they don't set it to anything in the data model. So I'm going to leave that part alone. I don't need really a server script. But what I do want to do is check c.data.date. So I'll need something for that. Let's just initialize that. Over here, it's addressed as data.date, and we'll leave that as empty. Okay. In the client script, it's addressed as c.data.date. Console.log date equals plus c.data.date. And I got to check if this is the only part that kind of questions me. Do we put in c.data.date or data.date there? I've seen it both ways. I've even seen this : thing, and maybe somebody can enlighten me as to when you're supposed to use that. So I save it. Let's do a preview to enable preview. that turns on this little eyeball icon. And here's my preview. Put the server script, it's currently empty. I also want to do a view developer JavaScript console. And it gets nice and squishy. It says, cannot set property is valid date format of undefined. I think something's wrong with the widget. Let's go back to, you know what? This is why I like a test page. It gets a little crowded over here with this. I could probably put this on the bottom, right? Not that one. Oh, Chrome, how you make me laugh. Where was the, put it on the bottom. There it is. Put it on the bottom. There's all kinds of extra gobbledygook in here. Okay, that'll work. I suspect, I'm not going to say this is the actual cause, but I suspect our date picker, it doesn't say inspection date. Something's wrong with the date picker. So I have a label inspection date. I have a date picker. Div class form group, SM6. Cannot set property is valid date format of undefined. Let's go look at an example. So on my instance, where I have widgets, service portal widgets, I'm going to leave that page because I don't want to save any of those header and footer changes. And I'm going to search for where the HTML contains SP date picker. Who's got a date picker? There's a date checker. Interesting. Let's see how that was implemented. They have, oh, that's mine. Interesting. Okay, so the only one that's in there is mine, which means I'm probably doing this wrong. SP date, still nothing. Huh. How about something that contains date? There we are. Add widget, add info, approvals. Probably copying some date. In the HTML template, find date. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? If approval start date, if approval end date, there's no date picker. Now, I thought there was a page. It used to be on serviceportal.io. Let's look for Google for date picker. Angular directives, community, how to get new changed value from HSP date picker directive. Keeps throwing in is invalid error everywhere. I want a lot of community articles, which is nice. But I thought we had some docs. Serviceportal.io. There. Huh. Guess it is still out of, or not. I thought this was moved somewhere. Reference fields with the record picker. I don't want the record picker. I want date picker. Searching for date picker. I believe this is Nathan's stuff. Widget, HTML, record watch, class support. Is this even a valid picker thing? If it's not, I'm curious where it came from. Localization. Still nothing out. Yeah, this is all Nathan Firth stuff, which is cool stuff. Let's see what the community has been saying. How to get changed value in SP date picker directive. Let's see how it was used. Maybe there's an example in here. SP date picker field c.delivery, ngModel delivery.value, ngModel options get set or true, sn disabled. Wow, they got a lot of options in here. Let's try theirs instead of mine. So back to editing this thing. We'll comment out this with a classic HTML comment. From here, you do that and that. Everything in brown is now commented out. Paste in theirs. Field is c.delivery. Don't know where that's coming from. So Let's find out if display category scope c.delivery equals new value. So they're watching that. To John Barnes, date picker, field delivery, ng model delivery.value, ng model options. Was this confirmed correct? Don't know, but it's not c.delivery. So that would stand to reason that ours should be field date. That's correct. Don't think we need these. You know, I'm going to uncomment ours and comment out this example. Just so it's an example, I'm not even going to verify that it's working or not. Then ng model. What did he do for his ng model? Just delivery.value. So leave that. That was the part that I suspected earlier. Let's save. Still getting is invalid date format of undefined. That's okay. Probably just can't pick anything. It's still not happy about that, but if I change it, do we get a console.log anywhere? Date equals nothing. Okay, so it's something in the definition of data.date. It's not able to validate this thing. So let's clear this out. I don't want to close it. I want to clear it. Over here, do a save again. And it's having an issue. Let's do a search on this. Is invalid date format. Is invalid date format. Stack Overflow, GitHub, developer.wordpress.org. I'm not seeing anything related to Servicenow. Servicenow. Okay, SP date picker throws an error in Service Portal London. That's how a lot of it's done, just Google searching. Ah, here we go. After we upgraded to London, cannot set property of invalid date format undefined. SP date picker ng model is blank, SN change is blank. Found the solution in this article. There must now be a field value on the directive. So let's go to that article, because there's nothing like an article that points to an article that should have been a link. Did I say that out loud? SP include time equals true. So if you want the time picker, ng model, SN change, custom date event. Okay, they got that, figured it out. Field equals date.cs date picker and ng model date.cs. That's what we did. I don't want we don't need to include the time, and we don't need the SN change. In the SN date picker, you need a field attribute, and it must be the same as your ng model, which we did. Field is date. Oh, data.date. Let's try that. Save that. Look, Ma. No more error. Well, we got a bad request here, but that's okay. Let's pick a date. Hit enter. Still says date equals nothing, which means it's not binding to data.date. Interesting. Let's go look at our client script real quick. C.data.date. Why not? Is it running that before or after? It was running that after, wasn't it? So clear that out again. Reload. Okay, we get that, we get that. And when we click this, no, it was displaying the client script beforehand. I need some sort of event handler. So what was the event deal that we had on that other article? SN change custom date $event. Oh, I really want the client script to this. Let's $event. Do we do it on, not broadcast, on, can't remember my events. It slipped. But that's what we got to get at. It's going to be, we need an event in here. We could do on change instead of custom event. What was that again? SN-change custom date. Could we stick in an on change to be, or an ng, not an ng click. All right, this is where I got to get a little different. Angular JS ng change. It's a real thing. Docs.AngularJS. And here's one from W3 Schools, which I love playing around with. I go to this site a lot. And we can say ng model, ng change, call my function. So if I were to say, put this in a function, I'm going to call it scope. So we need to declare scope up here in the client script function. And I'm going to call this scope.dateChanged. No parameters. Equals function. A little bit different syntax when you're dealing with these things. Now, let's only call this console.log, put a semicolon out there, indent. Let's only call that when it changes. So I need to say ng change date changed. Get that parenthesis going the right way. Try saving it again so we don't have a nasty old syntax error. And fail to execute set attribute element ng change is not a valid attribute name. Doesn't like my function name. Oh, it's not a valid attribute name. Let's try sn change, because that's what they did before. Maybe set attribute element sn change date change is not a valid attribute name. Really? Because it was used in this one, sn-change equals some function name. Did I get a syntax problem here? Oops, let's get the right screen. Let's date changed is the function name. That's how we're going to call it. I have not called a function from sn-change before, so what you see is all new territory. Oh, Charles. I know some of you are screaming at your screen right now, going, come on, dude, really? Try that. Save that. No problem. Let's clear that. Let's change this. Ta-da. Okay, that's what we need. There we are. Somewhere I had an article back here that was talking about this. Okay, my mistake. Whew. I got what you need. You need some form of handler to display the date when it changes. By default, I created a simple, by default it displayed for me before the date was changed. Client script code that is not in a function gets run on load time. So here is my HTML and client script as an example. I suspect your main issue was that the field and ng model attributes didn't match, which I want to verify that is the case. Up here, date and date. Oh, it did. Let's see. ID date field was date ng model. Yeah, that was the main one. So here comes my code. I'm not sure what all this white space is at the end of his article. Can I edit that? I might have access to do that, but anyway, let's put in the code. So here's my little code sampler for the HTML and XML. Somewhere in here I have my widget. Let's take that, paste it in there, get rid of that example. Oh, it was fun. Learned a little bit about SP Date Picker. Get that out of there. Make it small so I can hit OK. Make it big so you can read it. There's my HTML and client script goes here in another code block is JavaScript. And turn on the client script so I can actually see it. Find the article, paste it in, make it small, hit OK, make it big. Wow, that was a good challenge. That was a good one. So, hope you learned a little bit about Service Portal on that one. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to refresh and see if YouTube has figured me out yet. Nope. Okay. Well, like I said, I always got that local file. What I noticed a couple days ago is some of these code blocks are coming out with color coding on them. I don't know if that's just from the main post or... but I don't see them. I don't know if it's some attribute that I'm missing. Oh, forgot. That was a fun one. What was on my idea list? We got about 10, 15 minutes left. Oh, let's do a follow-up to yesterday. I was talking about action.setRedirectURL. There's another one called setReturnURL. And I wanted to show you an article that was responded to with an excellent piece of code by our very own Jim Coyne. And he was creating this function. I like this as an example for a couple of reasons. The person was trying to create a new record and then link that new record back to the old record. So let me walk you through that one. I'm going to bring this up in our text editor. Close yesterday's example. We already saw that. We'll save this in a new folder with today's date. And then save it as record reference.js if you're watching and you want to find that. That'll color code it nicely. Put this window away for that. And let's walk through this. He's got this encapsulating function around it. This is being done in a UI action. UI actions by default are working in the same context as all the other applications. So there's no protection of variables. If I happen to maybe make a mistake and forget a var statement, I could be taking advantage of a global variable declared somewhere else in the universe called sysid. That would be bad. It would screw up my results. It would probably screw up something else because I just stomped all over that. But by placing this into a function, this is a good practice to get into, especially in UI actions. It's already done in business rules. Didn't used to be. Years ago, business rules didn't have an onExecute, or if you remember the onBefore, onAfter function to wrap this around. When I started writing the technical best practices back in 2012, 2013, one of these was wrap your functions, particularly in business rules, wrap your code inside a function to protect the variables. Especially a lot of people do var equals new glide record. That is a very generic variable name and could run into problems later. You don't know if somebody didn't declare a var gr in their script and it wasn't encapsulated, it could be messing with your gr and now your glide record's all screwed up. So good practice, wrap it in a function. I know the syntax is a little crazy with the curly braces and the parentheses. Make yourself a macro, make yourself one of those syntax editor macros. We've got them, they're available on board the platform. You could do that. That could be your default UI action template. So that's step one. Then he declares a new glide record on the new table, initializes it with a new record, fills in some values, and then does an insert. And most of the time you see an insert, it doesn't care about a return value, but it does return a sysid. it gives you a -1 if it didn't work. But it returns a sysid. So realistically, we should be checking this if it was a -1, but he didn't do that. So there's one thing missing that we might want to improve on for just data error checking. Then he saves it back to the current record. This is a UI action, so current object is known, saves the value of the new record in the old or current record that we're looking at, then does a current update to save those values. Now, here's where it gets fun. We talked about setRedirectURL. When this UI action is done, it's going to take him to the new record. You can either put in a glide record, which is often current. If you want to stay on the current page, he wants to go to the new page and says, go to the new record. Go to the glide record that's in here. Or you can set it as a full a URL, relative URL preferred, so you don't go to some other crazy instance. There's another line in here that I want to call out. Again, both of these could be at the top. They're just header modifications in the HTML. So setReturnURL says, when you get to this record and someone hits the back button, go back to the current record. Go back to that old record. Go back to the one that it was referring to. Very handy little thing. Not seen very often, but when used in the right context, it can make the user experience a lot more pleasing because you're taking them where you need them to go. I've seen this. Where else did I see this? It wasn't a record producer because those go to the record, and when you're done, it goes back to the list, I believe. But you can modify where a record producer goes back to when somebody's done, or where they go after they submit. You could take them to a thank you page rather than to the resulting record, which is the default. Little off topic there, but setReturnURL is also very handy if you're doing UI actions. Think about using that. I'll leave this code up there so you don't have to go find Jim's article as I did. Other things there in the idea hopper. I will link that to today's episode that I don't mix up. In the Jeopardy game, I have an exporter. This one baffled me. And I talked yesterday about sysattachment and sysattachment doc. So let me take you to my personal developer instance, which is way down here somewhere. And I believe I have Jeopardy loaded on here. I don't know if I have any sample data. I do have sample data on here. Okay. In the Jeopardy game, there's an optional add-on to enable this export game functionality. The reason it's not there by default is because the APIs that I need to call to export this only work in the global scope. So I created a separate update set. When you go to the Jeopardy game, which is over here, there's a link to download this, and it'll take you to the share portal on the developer site, which has the sample data. So you can download the app here, version 1.0 of Jeopardy. You can download the sample data, 212 sample questions and answers, cards, if you will, and the exporter, which is in the global scope. When you download this, load it up through retrieved update sets. I'm sure many of you know how to do that. If not, I'll show you real quick. If I can get back to my instance, you go to retrieved system update sets, retrieved update sets, load it, preview it, commit it, and then you'll have an export game. That export game, UI action, does one thing, and that is sets up this processor. This is how I get the sysid of the current game, and I call the export Jeopardy game.do processor. A processor is similar to a scripted REST API. No versioning though. In fact, if you're not careful, you will soon recognize a lot of stuff on the system's processors. Practically every time you see a .do up there, it's enacting some sort of either explicit or implicit processor. So processors can be two types: Java, where you can't touch the code, or script. So let's filter these out and take a look at one of these. You can get your hands on the command line parameters. You can there's some other stuff in here, but I'm going to find my Jeopardy one, which is back on type all. Am I in global? I'm in global. So contains Jeopardy. And in my script, I have a couple things. This is based off of some code from Servicenow Guru, where you could export a catalog item, an entire catalog item with all the variables and all the stuff in the related list. I simply adapted it to say, start with the game record. I want to get my many-to-many tables that are on those related lists, but I also want the underlying records that are one level deeper. So I have to construct those manually. And what I found, this is the interesting part, is you need to put together an encoded query. And we talked about this using sysid join to make an encoded query. It says, on this table, here is the query of the records I want to get. And I was originally attacking, and I remember where it was going, that wasn't working. This is just one of those weird things that I want you to keep in mind should you ever come back to it. Not that one, this one. I had to fix the export of sysattachment.doc by changing addEncodedQuery. I had my addEncodedQuery. I've already got a list of the attachment records to say, now on sysattachment.doc, we looked yesterday, there is a field called sysattachment. Okay, the sysattachment.doc is the base64 encoded data for an image, for a Word document, for anything you uploaded to the instance. The sysattachment record is a baseline meta record for that. So I've got two records. I already know how to easily export the sysattachment record, but I need the doc record to go with that. And I said, well, if I've already got a list of these attachments, then I know the sysids that go with them. I should just be able to add an encoded query that says, let me make that a little bit bigger. I originally had an add encoded query that looked like this. Okay, it was docgr, whatever it was. I don't remember the exact URL or element name, object name. But I had to, that was not working. For whatever reason, it just kept coming back with nothing. I didn't have to do a toString, but what did work is just pulling this out and saying, no, do an add query on sysattachment. Functionally, these should have been exactly the same. I don't know why they were not. It was just, actually array is a terrible variable name. Oh, I didn't use that in my real code. Cheap excuse, I get away without it. So, not that one, that one. So down here, I have exporting my categories. I have exporting the cards. I have, where's my docs? This probably isn't my latest version. Ha! This is terrible. All right, we're going to go get the latest code. Let's go back to Servicenow Jeopardy, download. That didn't even have the attachment code in it. So let's fix that. I'll tell you, that was retrieved update sets. That was probably not even 102. That was 100. Import. Now you get to see the exercise of going through that. Choose file from my downloads folder, exporter M102, M for Madrid. I do have a naming process for my update sets. Click into it. Preview. Shouldn't take long. There's only one thing. Commit. Shouldn't take long. There's only one thing, that processor. And close. Now let's go back to the processor. Export Jeopardy game. And I should see that place where my code is. So there's the cards, there's the cards, there's the game, attachments. So I go get a list of all the attachments from, we know from sysattachment, there's a table name and a table sysid. That tells it what record this is associated with. So a card simply has an attachment of an image or an MP3, and I want to get those. So make a list of all of the records associated with the cards in this game. I already know what this is. Now this is where it got wonky. So I had to break this out. I couldn't do an encoded query with both of these. I couldn't even do an encoded query of just that one. And it blew my mind, because when I would go to print the encoded query, as you build up a query, whether you're using addEncodedQuery or not, if you're just using addQuery, addQuery, addOrQuery, addOrCondition, whatever it is, you can pull back what that encoded query is. And it was saying, here's part of it. And I went, where's the rest? And it wasn't until I broke this out into an explicit addQuery that this started outputting the right. It started making sense. That's a head scratcher for me. I would almost call that a bug, but I don't have enough hardcore evidence to say this is when it works and this is when it doesn't. Here's how to reproduce it. It just got really crazy and cost me a couple hours of bloody forehead banging on the wall. But put that in your bag of, hey, what if an addEncoded query doesn't work? Especially when it has an in it. That might be the key. I'll do more testing when I get a chance. But break it out to its lowest common denominator, at least. It's, what do you call that? When you break it down anyway. Break it down to its atomic components. But use addQuery. How's that for making it easier to say? Use addQuery and see if it fixes your problem, if you ever run into this. So, pain points from Chuck. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. And with that, I have to sneeze because it's the end of the show. I guess I'm allergic to the end of the show. Thank you for joining me today. If you found something you liked on this, if you found it helpful, maybe mildly entertaining, maybe you sneezed at the same time, give this video a like on YouTube. Give it a helpful link on the community. I appreciate that very much. Others will appreciate it. And if you learned something, be sure to share it so that you can be helpful, because that's what's going to say on the screen as soon as the music plays and I fade away. Till next time, thank you very much, and I will see you again real soon. Bye.